It is the Blue Room. We are in the middle of two derbies. Everton women doing the business on Sunday at Anfield. Hopefully, the lads can do the same on Saturday. So, it thought to be a wonderful time to catch up with our good friend Sue Smith. Sue, how are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you, Matt?
I'm good. I'm still very pleased about Sunday, but I think now we're sat here on Wednesday morning. I think like the focus is shifting towards Saturday, and the nerves are starting to creep in a little bit. What about you? Whereabouts are you in that spectrum?
Exactly the same as you. Yeah, absolutely delighted with the results at the weekend. The girls were brilliant because obviously coming into the game, I wasn't sure Liverpool coming in great form. Obviously like beating Arsenal and at the Emirates in front of a packed crowd, and then they go play Aston Villa, who were going to be a team who were right up there. They go and get a result against them. Everton not started well, two losses, but probably should have done better in some of those games, had chances that they didn't quite take. I know they've had injuries too. So I was really worried, and then started watching the game. Liverpool started well, but I just thought they managed it brilliantly. Meg Finnegan, I know she got the goal, but I just thought she was immense throughout. So yeah, I'm sort of still riding high from that one. But yeah, I'm similar to you as it's getting sort of closer to the weekend, starting to get slightly more nervous. I've just got my games for the weekend as well, and got the Derby game. So I'm going to be like,
Oh no, no. Well, do you know what? That's what I wanted to start off by talking to you about. Because when I messaged you this week, I looked back at like the last time we'd spoken, and it was a few days after the Bournemouth game. And I remember messaging you saying, I can't believe on that final day of the season they put you on. Was it Man United against Crystal Palace or something like
yeah,
that? A game which meant absolutely nothing. And there's Everton battling for their lives on the telly further down. I mean, how was that?
honestly, I literally just I had that on. So because I was in Wilmslow then, in the studio there. So my cameraman, who's like brilliant, I worked with him sort of like all through the year, and he had like the sort of Everton updates for me. So I was literally just watching him, and like they kept coming to me for an update, and I was like, oh, what's happened to Man United? So it was horrible. It was such a horrible. I think they put me on a game that didn't really matter, so they didn't really come to, because they knew that obviously my focus would be on how Everton were doing. So yeah, it was tough. It was tough to watch. I'm sure it was really tough to be there, and yeah, oh,
Oh.
we did it.
I don't know why you did that. I don't know why you did that. But let's focus on happier times anyway on Sunday. Because you mentioned there about I thought it was really interesting that it was quite very similar in a lot of ways to the derby last season, wasn't it? Liverpool had won the first game last season at Prenton Park. I think and got off to a great start. They were riding high. It was at Anfield. You sort of thought they'd carry that momentum. And Everton maybe were slight underdogs going into it, but as much as it was the same and a lot of factors were quite similar, looking at both teams and the journeys both teams have been on, certainly Everton with the massive changes in personnel, it was almost a completely different cast for the Blues. And you mentioned Meg Finnegan there and how good she's been. It must be so important to have that pillar of consistency running throughout the side when there is so much flux going on around the football club, and the way in which he's developed as a player and a leader, I think has been so impressive.
Yeah, no, you're right. And like I say, I think when there is so much change, which there obviously has been, you do need that consistency and that real sort of presence. And I feel like she's just developing all the time, like on the field, but also off the field as well. And yeah, I just thought she was brilliant. Like obviously pops up with the goal, which is important, but it was everything else, wasn't it? It was a defending. You could see her communicating with all the players around there, and I just think Everton will just keep going from strength to strength. Now I think that because I think they spoke to the manager, didn't they, after the game, and he was sort of saying, well, I think this will give us that maybe that boost that we need, which it's always going to, isn't it? A derby. You can see what it meant to them at the end when they were going up to the fans, and there's a little bit of booing as well. You don't normally see that in the women's game, so I was
Love
quite.
that. I absolutely love that. It's great. Made it even better.
And I think the girls love that as well. So, but no, like fantastic result, and they had to ride the luck, which I think you've got to, haven't you, in derby games? But yeah, hopefully that'll just give them that boost that's needed. Because some of the other games, I've not watched all of the games in terms of like the whole 90 minutes, but I've watched highlights. I've spoke to people, and they have said in a couple of the games they have been unlucky. They've created chances, just not quite taken them. So hopefully they're just building to having that consistency to to kick on from last season.
I think it's probably results like this as well, which are so high profile. No, Brian Thompson's trying to play quite an intricate, expansive brand of football, isn't he? And that takes time in any walk of life. But I think when you lose players and you look through the spine at the side from last season, Gabby George isn't there anymore. Izzy Christians is not there anymore. Jess Park, who's provided that, that sprinkling of stardust last season, she's not there. So to try and implement that again, almost with a new group this summer must be difficult, and it must be results like that which just give you credence and maybe patience going forward that this is going to work eventually, but there might be some bumps in the road.
Yeah, you're right, because I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, as a player, you go, okay, I quite like this brand of football, but we're not winning. So you then start questioning it and start saying, well, actually, do we need to start maybe doing something a little bit different? But I think when you then go and get a result and you go, okay, it is just going to take time. You mentioned losing the spiny side is going to have an effect on any team, isn't it? And again, I spoke about Meg Finnegan with her off the field sort of leadership qualities. You're losing 3 players there. That, I know Jess she's only young, but she sort of led by example, didn't she? The quality that she provided, that little spark. But Izzy Christiansen, massive leader, massive experience. Same with Gabby George. So you're losing that as well, whilst trying to instill a philosophy that you want to play and that does look good, and you can see that the players are adapting to it. But it does take time and patience is needed, which can be frustrating as players, but also can be frustrating as fans.
And looking ahead, I think it's been quite an interesting start to WSL of what I've seen. It feels like it's been loads of ups and downs, quite a few mad results to start off, as you mentioned, that Liverpool win at Arsenal. But where do you sort of see this Everton team fitting in going forward, and what do you think their ambitions should be? Because like you've said, by and large, they've played well in pretty much every game, but not quite got the results they deserve. I mean, do you think they've got the capabilities to better what they did last season, or will it be all about consolidation?
No, I was thinking about this at the start of the season, and I was like, where would be a good finish for Everton? Because, I think sort of saying finishing Champions League spots, I think that's too much at this moment in time. And that's just because of, like you say, the amount of change, the amount of players in and out, and probably, the recruitment's difficult. I think when you're competing with the likes of Arsenal and Manchester City and Chelsea, that, of Man United, that have got a lot of money to be able to bring in the best players from around the world. You're competing with that. But I think just keep building. I think that's the most important thing. If they can finish higher than last season, that'd be brilliant. But if they can get that consistency, get that, performances and results at a decent level, then you hope next season then they can build again. You keep that group together, and then you just add in a couple of little players. So I think that's probably where I'd look at Everton at the moment. But I think it's going to be so competitive this year, just already with teams getting beat that you've not really expected to get beat, and other teams picking up results that you've not necessarily thought of. And I think that just shows the quality of the WSL now, which is what we all want. And I know you could say, well, has it been a bit of a knock-on effect from the World Cup because teams haven't had that much time training together, which they haven't. I think before the first game, Mark Skinner came out, the Man United manager, and said, look, we've had, I think, 8 sessions together. So, what are you going to do in 8 sessions? It's difficult, isn't it? So I think we'll probably start seeing then the teams that are going to finish like sort of top 3, top 4, we'll see them probably start pulling away, and then it's the other group then. So if Everton can finish the top of the other group, I think that'd be brilliant for them, and then build next season.
Yeah, sort of like best of the rest kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously this weekend they're playing against Manchester United at Walton Hall Park. That should be an interesting game as well. Hopefully they can take the confidence from last weekend into this weekend, and hopefully a lot of people who go down there get to see another great performance. But we have got to speak about Saturday and the lads as well, Sue. But just people who are listening to this on the podcast who just covered her face. But just in regards to the season so far, I just think it's been so weird.
Yeah.
There's been some really good performances. You look at Brentford away, you look at Villa in the cup, and you felt after that like, right, we've cracked it now, we're going to be fine. And then they lose to Luton, and you had the Villa result, which was horrendous. You had the win last weekend, which was great. I mean, what have you made of it so far? Because it sort of feels like looking at and speaking to fans, it's like people who've sort of looked at the XG and what the manager's been saying and saying, I believe in this, it's going to come good eventually. And there's those others who look at it and go, XG, this is nonsense. You need to put the ball in the back of the net. And it feels like we're sort of split into those two camps at the moment. What have you made of the way in which the team have played this season and the way in which the managers assessed it?
You know, I think the word weird is probably the best word to describe it when you said that, because it's just been a real bizarre season. You know, what I've watched every game this year, and some of them I've done it on Soccer Saturday. Some of them, you know, I've just watched it as a fan. And yeah, you see them and you think, wow, like the Aston Villa game, I covered that on Soccer Special. And obviously, Jules is a big Everton fan as well. He was a presenter. And he kept looking at me and he was like, we're playing really well. And I was like, yeah, we are. We're actually like, you know, against a very good side as well. And I know we both made changes, but, you know, the performance I thought was right up there. You mentioned the Brentford game, exactly the same. I also watched the Fulham game and the Wolves game where we created so many opportunities, but just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And that was just frustrating. And I kept saying, oh, well, once Dominic Calvert-Lewin comes back, you know, Jack Harrison, Dwight McNeil, you know, Beto's obviously in there. And you think, well, we've got that, you know, sort of quality and ability in the final third, will be okay. And yeah, and then Luton happened. And I was so down after Luton because I thought, you know, that's a team that probably most of us would say are going to go. I know, you know, they've probably been better in certain games, but we had to win that game. And you go 2-0 down. And when we scored just before half time, I thought, okay, we'll come back here. And we just didn't. The Bournemouth games give me a little bit more hope. And, you know, Merce actually said it on Saturday. He was like, Everton at home need to score first. And it's true, isn't it? I just think you then get that sort of, I suppose they get that belief, don't they? They get that confidence to move forward. So I'm always looking at the positive. So I looked at the XG and was like, okay, I think we're second in the Premier League, aren't we, behind Tottenham? So I'm like, okay, that's a positive. You've got to take that. We are creating the chances and creating good chances. But like you said, you've got to take them and you've got to get results. I don't care if our XG is crap and we win 1-0. I don't. But I think with us, you know, when we have been losing, I've been holding on to that and going, okay, I believe in Sean Dyche. I believe what he's saying. I believe that we are gonna come good. And yeah, that Bournemouth game just give me that little bit of hope. I thought Garner in the middle, it's like he sort of fell upon that midfield, hasn't he? In terms of it just getting injured in the warm up, Garner, Decore, and Anana just seemed to work. There seemed to be that balance in there, which I quite liked. I don't know what you thought about that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting what happens on Saturday now, because I sort of feel like Idrissa Gueye, you sign him for games like Saturday where you're going to have not much of the ball. You need to sit in and win it back. And, you know, he's experienced as well now, given where he's played. But I think if he comes in, you've either got to play him wide right, which means you've got to probably drop Harrison, which would be harsh, or you take Anana out, take James Garner out, or take Decore out, which I think would also be a big move. So, you know, it's a good problem, isn't it? I suppose from that point of view, you know, we have got options in that midfield. But just something you said there about XG, and I've always wondered this, but from a player's point of view, do you know when managers after the game, when they say, like, after the Luton game and the Luton game, the Wolves game, and the Fulham game, when managers come out and say, well, you know, the XG was great. You know, I did everything. You know, the players did everything I could to get in the positions, and then the manager always says, well, I can't stick the ball in the back of the net for them. You know, from a player's point, and it's almost like the managers are kind of like absolving themselves of that final bit of responsibility. I mean, from a player's point of view, is that right? Is that true? Because surely there are things you can do on the training ground and work in regards to finishing and that kind of thing, which means that it's not just, you know, the manager just throws them out there and goes, well, this part of it is not my job. Like, I just feel like there's definitely more that can be done, surely.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think, you know, I'm hoping that they are practicing and working on, you know, sort of how to put the ball in the back of the net and working those opportunities. And I think that's pretty much what he's saying, that we're getting ourselves into those opportunities. So tactically, we're doing things right. The movement's really good, but then it's just that final little bit. And the final little bit is it is actually putting the ball in the back of the net. It's that final shot where it's either going over the bar or wide, or it's, you know, a decent save from a keeper. But at times it was also like the deliveries or the final ball into the box. There was a lot of things that weren't quite going right, and sometimes that is confidence. Sometimes that is you're just rushing things because you're desperate to score and you're desperate to do the right thing. And you could see at times that's what Everton were doing. They were getting themselves into those positions and just panicking. And against Bournemouth, I just felt they were a little bit calmer. I know there was a few sort of balloons into the air, wasn't there? But they seemed a little bit calmer in those like sort of final third moments, which at times we have struggled with. And that's what I just hope that belief now comes. Okay, we've gone and scored 3 goals. Yeah, Bournemouth weren't great, and they give us the first goal, didn't they? And giving the ball away pretty frequently. But just that now that they're getting themselves into that sort of latter part of the pitch, and just not rushing, not panicking, doing what you've done in training, because they probably do it in training and they're probably brilliant. They probably put the ball in the back of the net all the time, but you put them in a pressure situation, it's different, isn't it? And when you are scrapping for points, you just, I always look back to that first game of the season. It was Fulham the first game, wasn't it? And I just think we absolutely had so many chances to win that game. And as I'm watching it, I'm thinking we're going to lose this game 1-0 because they weren't putting the ball in the back of the net. And you think if we'd have gone and won that game 4-0, you then go into the rest of the season, and would that have been different? So I sort of understood where he was coming from. And I think it was maybe Tarkovsky, I think, came out and spoke about it. And he was like, once that, I think they're believing in it. So, yeah, I can see it from both sides there. I think, of course, the manager, sure that they're working on those things, and it just becomes natural. It's just an instinct, isn't it? When you get into those positions, you know exactly what you have to do. But then also it's the calmness of being in front of goal and doing the right thing. And God, I've done it as a player so many times, where I've got into positions and I thought, why on earth have I done that? It's just and you're like, have I missed that? It's easier to score than miss, and that is just it's the sort of calm in the head, which sometimes just doesn't happen for whatever reason. And unfortunately, we've had a few games like that, haven't we?
Yeah, and I'm just thinking as well, like from a player's perspective again. Like I imagine it's like I always play down like stuff like leadership and stuff like that. But I imagine it's like in moments like that where you've had 3 games where you've won the XG considerably. You've not scored a goal, you've missed a load of chances. Like it feels like then is probably where it's really important to have good characters around in the dressing room, because I imagine if you've not got those leaders there, everyone would just get pissed off at each other. Like you've missed this amount of XG. You've done that. I'm playing my backside out in holding midfield or centre back or the goalkeeper. I'm not saying Jordan Pickford's like this for any minute, by the way. It's just a hypothetical situation, but it feels like that's where you need your leaders to kind of stand up and get everybody thinking like this is gonna turn around. Because if you have one game like that, I'm sure it's fine to shrug off, but 2, 3, 4, it must get really difficult.
Yeah, and they're probably watching them as well. They'll be like obviously doing all the video analysis after the game, and they'll be watching all of those chances, and they'll be thinking, God, have we missed all these? And that's where you have to flip it onto a positive, haven't you? You've got to sort of go, okay, yeah, we're missing those chances, but the fact we are creating them and we are getting ourselves into that position is a positive, and at some point it is going to come. And I think having the likes of like keeping Dominic Calvert-Lewin fit is key, isn't it? I think keeping him fit, you'd have Beto that if you want to rest him, you can bring him on and make sure you wrap him up in cotton wool. There was the goal where he scored and Decore jumped on his back. And
I was Brentford, like, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was thinking, no, don't hurt him.
Yeah.
It's like he's going to get injured. So, having Harrison as an option, Dwight McNeil back fit, I think you've now got like players that are capable of being creative and scoring. You've got players on the bench that you can bring on, which, like you mentioned, the competition in midfield. We haven't had that, have we? You look sometimes at the bench and you think, how are we going to change things? Whereas now you think, well, at least we can, and we can do so. If someone is having a bit of an off day, if Calvert-Lewin's had 5 chances that he's missed, he's just not on it, you bring Beto on and you hope that that he can sort of be clinical. I know he's sort of still getting to grips with things, isn't he? But you hope that he can come good as well. So yeah, I think having that competition for places, but having leaders is key in training, because you do come into training the next day after a game like that where you've battered the team, but you've lost the game 1-0, and it's easy to just be down, and then the training session to be down, and maybe the quality is not as good, and then you go home, and then that carries on then to the next week. So you need those big characters to come in and go, all right, lads, yeah, we might have lost 1-0, but actually we were the better team, and let's just keep doing what we're doing, and it will come. And I think Everton do have that, or they seem to, or you hope that they have.
Yeah, certainly in like Seamus Coleman. I know he's always around, isn't he? He's someone you'd think would be there. But just finish off then, looking ahead to Saturday. My feeling around this is that if this wasn't Everton and Anfield, like I look at the situation, and I was saying this on another show, like if this was a different team wearing different colours, with the exact same players, the exact same manager, the exact same form, and like looking at the away form, which has been quite good, I think, under Dyche. Not amazing, but quite good. And looking at Liverpool with their injuries, they've got Curtis Jones suspended. They've got a lot of lads who played or who are playing tonight in internationals, who are going to come back tired. If that wasn't Everton, I'd be looking at this going, well, this could be a tricky game for Liverpool. They've had a big kickoff about the 12:30 kickoffs, haven't they, a lot this season as well? And I'm sure going to have a whinge about that again in his press conference today, given the opportunity. But it is Everton and Anfield, and that's why I sort of feel like it's awesome. All kind of other logic and thought kind of goes out the window a little bit. But I feel like the ingredients are there for us to make this tough for them. Not necessarily to go there and win, but I think if Everton go there and execute like they did against Brentford, like they did against Villa, then I think a point is there for us on Saturday.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And I think if it was an Everton at Anfield, I'd be thinking exactly the same. And it is. It's just there. Yeah, you just look back at games, don't you, where I've thought exactly the same thing going in. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are, I suppose, positive for Everton going into the game. I don't want to say it because it's like you don't want to jinx anything, do you? But I would absolutely snatch a point right now. I'd take that all day. And you just think if they can, obviously they're going to set up defensively, aren't they? Obviously they're going to try and limit Liverpool going forward, because I think that's the strength of Liverpool. The quality going forward. They got goals everywhere, but I think defensively you can get at them. So I think as long as we've got that outlet and we've got that threat when we go forward, and you get a chance, you take it. That's the most important thing, isn't it? I think you're saying about like who do you bring in if you're going to bring Idrissa Gueye back in? Like I just think Harrison can be your outlet. He can be your pace getting forward. Obviously Doucouré, Calvert-Lewin holding it up and players getting in and around. So yeah, I think defensively you've got to just be sound and just try and soak up and frustrate the crowd, and just nick a goal. Be amazing, wouldn't it? But I'm just worried, just the same as you. It's so many of my mates who are big Blues that go the game every week. They're not watching it. They're either working. I can't watch it. So yeah, I will be, and I probably threw my hands, I think.
Yeah, my thought process is that I think it was after the derby when their kids beat us in the FA Cup and Curtis Jones scored. Like that, I think that was it. It's like nothing can get any worse now. So we can't be hurt because we're not expecting anything. That's the way it goes about it. But just finish off. How do you think it's going to go? So are we going to get that point?
Do you know what? You got to be positive, haven't you? Yeah. I'm going to go 1-1. I think we're going to sneak one. But I just can't see Liverpool not scoring, unfortunately. So 1-1, I would take that. Absolutely take that.
Yeah, I'll be absolutely buzzing with that as well. That'll make for a great 7 days at Anfield, won't it, for both teams. But listen, we'll leave it there anyway, mate. Thanks very much for coming on as ever, and hopefully we can catch up later in the season with both teams flying high.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thanks, Matt.